Hi, this is Mark Wahlstrom, and welcome to an edition of Speaking of Settlements, a featured broadcast here on the Legal Broadcast Network. Well, today I'm joined by the tax expert, attorney Rob Wood. And Rob, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Hey, we're going to be talking about something a little bit arcane, a little bit unusual here. Allstate this week kind of came out with, for lack of a better term, a sales kit, procedures, process to begin to do structured settlements, if you will, on divorce cases. Something that's been kind of talked about in our industry and in our profession. Finally, I would say they're giving a little bit of a push and giving people the paperwork, the process, the procedures to get these done. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, Rob, I think the first issue, and we touched on it a little bit in our conversation off air, is the tax issues related to divorce. So I think before we get started on the product itself and how it might work and where it may apply, let's talk just real quickly about Section 1041 and just give people just a quick primer on the tax elements of divorce and how this product, which is related to marital property distribution, would work.
Sure. So I would say the good news is the tax treatment of divorce is actually pretty simple. The bad news is that as a tax lawyer, I have often seen divorces that have not been handled correctly from a tax viewpoint. So I think for people who are viewers who are either going through a divorce or who are professionals assisting others in going through a divorce, it's important to make sure that somebody on the scene, if it's not you, is paying attention to the tax rules. Section 1041, Mark, as you mentioned, is kind of the key provision. It is a surprisingly simple Internal Revenue Code provision and basically says that any transfer between spouses isn't taxable. So there's an unlimited, you don't have to think about gift tax, you don't have to think about income tax. Transfers between spouses are tax-free. And transfers unwinding a marriage are tax-free. So pursuant to a divorce decree or a separation agreement, any kind of agreement, formal or not, there are a few limits. I don't think we need to go into those, but basically there are some time limits. So if you get divorced and then 5 years later you transfer something, there are ways to either come outside of 1041 or within it, but you just need to see a professional. But the good news, again, is tax-free if it's during marriage or pursuant to a divorce, if it's a property settlement. The other two rules that we need to cover quickly for divorce are alimony and child support. Those are the two other main financial sides of divorce. Alimony, I think we all know, is income to the recipient spouse, deductible to the payor spouse. And finally, child support is treated the same as property settlement, basically no tax consequences. So most of the issues, Mark, in divorce that we see are, is it alimony or is it property settlement? Because obviously the tax consequences are quite different.
Right. And Robin, I think it's important to note, one of the things on this Allstate program is that they specifically will not do structures on alimony and child support. This is strictly a marital property benefit, and again, we were talking a little bit beforehand. I think we both have the same opinion that this product will probably have a fairly narrow application and be used really only in certain types of planning situations. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did. You're right. Of course, it does say in the documents that we've seen, it does say expressly that you can't use this. Allstate won't do it for alimony, and I think that's inevitable. I think they had to do that, but I also think it's unfortunate. I think we can all think that of circumstances in which a recipient spouse, somebody who's going to be I guess. I don't know, the current example, I don't know if it might be Katie Holmes or something. The person who's going to be getting some money might want the money over time, and as opposed to in a lump sum, and that would be ideal for spousal support. As opposed, where basically you're saying, look, you're not going to have the husband's or the wife's salary for the next 20 years, and instead you're going to get these payments. But I think the reason Allstate did that, and I guess the analog would be in a wage, in an employment case, we know that Allstate and a few others will write structured settlements in employment cases, but not for the wage element.
Right.
It's kind of the same sort of thing. They're saying, look, we're not going to do it here. We know that with alimony there's a deduction and income inclusion. It's complicated. So they're just saying only the property settlement, and that, as you say, though, Mark, is pretty limiting.
Yeah, and really, I mean, one of the things I look at, I mean, from a property standpoint, you've kind of given us the tax framework and talked about this. I mean, let's just take that they've got to sell real estate, and they've got $1 million of real estate that needs to be sold, that's jointly owned, that's not encumbered by debt. Assuming a 50-50 split, there's 500,000 and 500,000, and why would somebody want that paid over time as opposed to simply taking the money? I touched on a few scenarios. Maybe there's a history of one of the recipients of drug abuse, alcohol abuse. Maybe there's been a history of bankruptcies or financial irresponsibility. You could have a spouse that's incarcerated. You could have somebody who's showing early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's or incapacity. I think there's some planning considerations, but the tax planning element, as you pointed out, there really isn't a tremendous tax advantage per se, because we're really just talking about dissolving property. So I think it really comes down more to a creative application of planning and why somebody might want it over a period of time, as opposed to simply taking it in their hands. And you're right. I mean, I think the alimony side, we certainly wish it could be done for that, because people may want a secured income that's not relying upon the earning power of an ex-spouse.
I was just going to say, Mark, that I think one, and maybe I'm kind of trying to make lemonade here out of this oftentimes very awkward tension between property settlements and alimony. But one, I mean, I agree with you, but one good thing here, I think, is that this Allstate product and hopefully its dissemination within the divorce, within the so-called family law community of divorce lawyers will be that I think it will increase the focus on, is it property settlement or alimony? And that's a really good thing, because oftentimes that line is not clear. The other thing is maybe, and maybe again this may be overly hopeful, but maybe if this product catches on, Allstate will be able to expand it into alimony. Because I really could, as you can, I really can see an enormous potential there, where everyone knows that it's a miserable circumstance to be dealing with, ex-spouses fighting over whether the check's going to come this month. So having a third-party payor like Allstate, sort of a blue chip payor that automatically sends the checks, is a great sort of relief valve. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, I've been doing this a while, and you have as well. We see the evolution of this, and we never know. Tax rulings come in, PLRs get written, companies take a fresh look, and I think if they see traction and interest in this area, and I think you just hit on the key point, there's a great public policy benefit on the state and the federal level to secure incomes for spouses on alimony, and to remove this contention, remove the uncertainty. And much the way structures, the reason that they brought about assignments was to bring about that same level of security. So, we can hope, but I think, it's one of those things, it's another tool in the toolkit for divorce attorneys, people in family law. I think it gives us a creative application on these. One last question, Rob. I did notice there was one other nuance in the Allstate product, is that they require two funding agreements, one for taxable income portion and a second for the non-taxable portion. I think we both know, why that might be, but could you just kind of expand on why you think that they would require that?
Well, I mean, there is a Section 1041, as we said, is is a simple provision. It says it's non-taxable. I actually don't know why they did that, although I know that there's a big economic difference between saying to someone, here's $500,000 of property settlement today, non-taxable, versus here is a stream of payments that's going to pay you $20,000 every 6 months for the rest of your life or something. Obviously those are different, and the difference is interest. So I think they're just trying to keep it really clear what portion is interest and what portion isn't, so that there could never, which I think is probably smart, so that there could never be a dispute about the non-taxable portion.
Right. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. There is a fogginess in the in the tax planning for many people who do go through a divorce as to what constituted marital property, what's alimony, what's child support, and this does bring some clarity to it. And I think for people who are handling substantial divorces and large dissolutions of property, it's a tool, and I think it's we'll be promoting it, we'll be pushing it out there, making people aware of it. And I think it'll find its uses. It's always good to have a creative application available, some tax certainty, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of today to talk about it, Rob. It's it's always a pleasure.
Not at all. Nice talking to you.
All right, take care. You've been watching Speaking of Settlements. This is a featured broadcast on the Legal Broadcast Network. Join us here every week for news, information, and commentary on structured settlements and settlement planning. I'm Mark Wahlstrom. I'll see you again next week.